here we are bringing you more tutorials from Edinite Technologies, still talking about um, the functions we could use to arrive at this kind of multi-operational calculator. This is the third part of this series, so keep watching as we bring you the full gist. So this part we are delving into the JavaScript, and from the CSS part and the HTML that has been done in the previous series, we made displays the result space to be displayed as block, but ordinarily I would want to make it to display, to set the display to be none. So I do not want that result space to be showing at this point. This is the place I'm saying. So if I refresh this page, you will no longer be seeing this space. All right. So I expect the result space to be showing when I must have updated the operations, when the parameters for the calculation must have been set. Then you click on this calculate button you're seeing here, then it will append those input options where you'll be seeing the boxes for you to add your content. Okay, so just stay tuned as we bring you the full gist. All right, so let's get down to the JavaScript file and begin entering the code. So in this JavaScript file, what I'm going to do will be divided into 4 segments. Now, in the first part, we shall be saving some variables. We shall be saving some functions as variables, and then after that, we'll be defining the operations that are required. After that, we'll enter the functions that we'll be using to perform the calculations, and the final part will now be to perform the calculations. So after updating the input fields, we'll update also or define the operations that are required. We save the input as variables, then we perform the calculation. So let's get at it. Save this as a constant variable operation. Let me save it as operation select will be assigned to be document dot get element by id. I could also use query selector, and in this case selecting an id. So I wish to select the id that has the name operation, which is in the HTML. All right, so period. Another thing I would save as variable would be the id that is having the name calculate. So let me save it with this variable name calculate button. Calculate button should be assigned to get document dot get element by id. Calculate a period. Then another thing will be constant. Let me save the div where the input box will be. So the div holding the input box, let me name it input div. Should get me the id that is input document dot get element by id. Make sure you put this in strings. Okay, so the next thing is the result value where we have the span, so where the result will be displayed. So I'm saving it also as variable result value is assigned to document dot get element by ID. What ID do I want to get? Ordinarily, I would even open this HTML and then copy it, which is this ID, result value. Control C, go back to the JavaScript file, then paste it. All right. And the last one I would like to save here is the result div. Result div. If you go back to the HTML part, you see it. This result div is having an ID result. Remember, this result div, I also called it in the CSS part using the class. Now I'm calling it in the JavaScript file using the ID. Okay. Const. When I use const, of course, if you are familiar with JavaScript functions and way of defining variables, this is a constant variable that will not be used in subsequent places within this file. Okay, constant results div is assigned to document dot get element by ID as well. What I want to get at this point, get results. I will still check to be sure it is having the same thing, because if I had s added to this and I just wrote only result, it will not get it for me. All right, done with assigning these variables. At this point, I would want to make bold this operation select, this particular variable that I've gotten here, giving it the name operation select. What does it get me? It gets, let's go to the index.html and we'll see what it gets. This operation, what has an ID operation from the HTML? It is this select tag. So I would like this select tag to be bolden. Let's see it on the output so I see what I'm talking about. This part, select the mass operation of your choice. To make it bold, let's call it from the JavaScript, not from the CSS now. So I'll add operation select dot style dot, so it gets me the style, gets me the font weight, and then we make it to be bold. All right, so let me refresh this page. You could see it. Select the mass operation of your choice has been made to be bold. All right, let's get at it. Now the next thing I would like us to do is to define the mass operation and the required input. I would like to comment it so that you know what you're talking about. Defining the mass, the operations and their required inputs. Okay, now this is going to be a bulk, quotation, a block quote. So const operations. Remember, we had operation, but in this case, it's going to be operations. So operations, I'm assigning it to a bulk way like this, using the curly braces. In this case, I would want to be defining the formulas for these mathematical operations you're seeing here. How do I do that? I'll have to copy the value I have for these options. So this first one is going to be area rectangle, copy it. In fact, let me break this screen so that you'll be seeing the CSS and the HTML and then the JavaScript at the same time. Okay, so this is the JavaScript and this part is the HTML. So when I copy from here, I will paste it here. What's the formula for area of a rectangle? You should know it. If you don't know, just follow this tutorial, you will get at it. Okay, so the formula will be defined in a bracket as this, using the parameters of length and W. All right, using arrow notation to define this function. Now the formula for getting area of a rectangle is 2 times length times width. Okay, now we also define the input it is going to take. And what are the input it will take? Those inputs will be length and width. All right, inputs. Still put them in strings, length, comma, width. All right. So in that case, okay, I realized we are supposed to put this inside a rectangular bracket, not curly braces now. So good. Set this as an array. After each one, we would separate it with comma. This we copy it and paste here. Formula. This is supposed to take the parameters of b and h, which is base times height. B, comma, height, which is h. Now using arrow notation function as well, it's now going to be 0.5 multiplied by that. So 0.5 multiplied by b times h. Come out of the bracket, then set the input that it will take. Base height. Okay, still put them in rotation. Okay, let me put that in rotation. All right. As you can see, we've defined the operations and the required inputs, the input required for these two, area of a rectangle and area of a triangle. I would actually want us to maybe add the to update the input field. Remember that from the HTML which you are seeing here, we left this input field to be empty div that will be updated from this JavaScript. Following the first and second tutorial, you will see what we did. So in this third part, having added or defined the operations and the required input for these two, we will still do the other parts down to the statistical operations. I would want us to update the input field based on the selected operation. So if you select any operation, the input part will be updated according to the required inputs or the operation that has been selected. So in that case, let's quickly update it I will comment it, say here, updating the input fields based on the selected operation. Remember, I've defined this operation select. So, and I want to add an event listener or event listener to that operation select. So, operation select dot add event listener. I want to listen for change. So, when one changes from one operation to another, what should happen? So, this is the way it is done in JavaScript. So, listen for the operation of change or the for the event of change. You should go ahead and perform this function when one changes from one operation to another. So go ahead, perform this function. What function should it perform? It should get the operation select dot value. So operation select dot value. In that case, I call it as operation select dot value. So you should go ahead and get me the value of that operation select. After it has done that, but I wouldn't want just to leave it that way. I want to save it as variable. So in that case, let me save it with a variable name. Selected operation is assigned to operation select dot value. So any value the user selects, the value that the user puts should be named with this selected operation. Okay. All right. All right. Having added this as a variable, let's quickly append the HTML element. So input to the input div, that is an empty div which we've created and entered it as a variable, saved it as a variable. So in HTML, a JavaScript function that is used to locate the HTML element through the JavaScript. So we are assigning this to an empty string. All right. So now let's also set the display result div. To set the display of the result div as none, not block now. Okay, style dot what style we want display. Display is assigned to be none. Still put it in a string. All right. Now, having done that, let's make use of the conditional statement, the if conditional, such that if the selected operation is equal to that particular operation, you should go ahead and append the input box. Okay, so if you open your bracket and then say selected, remember we saved it as variable, selected operation using the logical and. So if selected operation and operations itself, operations selected operation, if this statement is true, then you should go ahead and perform this function. So you should go ahead and do what? And say operation select, operations, not operation select now, operation select or selected operation now, selected operation dot inputs. Now we are looping over this input. So using the for each input. So in that case, we are passing in this as input name, we're here to enter this. So that's the variable or the parameter it is going to take. So input name, making it to be set on the index to make sure it synchronizes with the first one. Okay, so in this case you should go ahead and perform this function using arrow notation function. All right, what function should it perform? It should get us it should go ahead and create an input element, and we are going to save that with a constant variable name const input. Let's name it as input, assign it to get us document, okay, to create an input element dot create element. element What kind of element do you want to create? It's an input type of element. And this input type of element, we have different types of inputs from the HTML. So we're going to append the input type to be to be text. Of course, we have type of password, we have type of checkbox, we also have type of radio, as well as submit. So in this case, the input type we want to append is text. Let's add an ID to it, input.id. Then we'll assign this to be using this backslash quotation sign input. Let it get us the index, okay, using this dollar sign index, and the placeholder for this input boxes would be the input name that we've already created, input dot placeholder is assigned to be input name. All right, finally let us now append that input to the input div dot append child element. That is the JavaScript function or command that will help us to append this. Now, what type of element do you want to append? It is the input that we already created. All right, at this point I would want you to take a break, but before that, let us check the output of what we just did, okay, so that we'll be sure that it is working. So I've saved this page. Now let's reload our web page. Normally at this point, maybe if I click on area of a triangle, no input is updated. It is not appending the input child. But now let me refresh this page. I've refreshed it by clicking on that reload. Now let me select area of a triangle. You could see it. Base, height, you could see. It has dynamically imputed or appended the input element for this selected operation. Okay, maybe we could decide to select another operation which we have not entered the formula. For instance, area of a circle, you could see there's no input element that is appended. But if I select area of a triangle now, you will see it add. All right, so it comes with this placeholder that is the input name, and I would like us to continue this tutorial from that part. So let us continue updating or defining the operations and the required inputs. On the right side of this screen is showing the HTML file. Here we shall be getting the values for the operations. We'll be entering their formulas. All right, so let's quickly get at it. Let me copy this value, and then we will enter the formula for the area of a square. And the area of a square is usually s raised to power 2. So S raised to the power 2 means the sides times the sides. Okay, so formula is taking the parameter of S. So just S. In that case, using the arrow notation function, we'll enter the formula it should take, which is simply S times S. That means S raised to the power 2, comma. Then enter the inputs as an array. Then side length. Now let's check our output. Refresh the page. Alright. Check for area of a circle. Area of a circle. Okay. I guess it has not been updated. Or will you enter it correctly? Okay. Let me add comma. I save the page. Reload. Area of a circle. Still not updated. Then in this case, we'll check our console to know what. Okay, not circle now, but square. That means I'm the one selecting the wrong operation. So area of a square was the one we entered last. So you see it's side length, and you could see that we've not spelled this length correctly as the placeholder. So let's quickly correct that. Alright, so side length. Alright, let's copy that of trapezoid, area of a trapezoid. Put in the formula for that, which is taking the three sides and the two sides and then height. The two sides and then height. So formula A, comma B. Once obtained A, B, and H, which is for height. So in that case, just like the area of a triangle, it takes the formula of 0.5, which is half, 0.5 times A plus B, come out of the brackets, times height. Alright, then what are the inputs it is going to take? Those inputs would be base and height. Let me copy this. But in this case, we shall be adding base A, base B, and then height. Alright. Now I've saved this page. Let's go back to our output and then check it. Let me refresh. So on refreshing this page, check area of a trapezoid. You will see it give us three input options. Are you following now? And this was happening because we've updated the input unit based on the selected operation. We've updated the input unit based on the selected operation. So once you select any operation and that the formula has been entered and we've keyed in the input unit, it will just update it. It will append the child element. Alright, if I decide to select area of a circle now, you will see that the input unit will not be appended because you've not entered it. Alright, let's go back and do that. So the next thing on our from the HTML is area of a circle, and area of a circle is pi radius square. Alright, so formula. In that case, the parameter you should take is just r. All right. So area of a circle, we take r. Then using the arrow notation function, what then is the function we're going to key in? We are now going to use the math function. So it is a JavaScript command that allows for one to choose. We've not entered this thing very well. So math to choose mathematical operation he wants. So here we want to select from this option, from the drop down you're seeing here, we want to select pi, which is the math value for pi. In mathematics, normal calculation, the value of pi is 22/7 or 3.14. All right. In that case, math.pi has its own value in JavaScript. So remember, the area of a circle is pi radius square, pi r square. So math.pi multiplied by r multiplied by r. That is the way we get that pi radius square. We can also do that using math.pi power. All right. So just watch. Is either we do it this way or we do it in another one we're going to do subsequently. You see I will use math.power to get raised to power either 2 or raised to power 3. Okay. So in this case, math.pi times r, add your comma, then put the input parameters that it will take. Input will take radius only. So radius. That's what the user is expecting to see. Now let me refresh this page. Check for area of a circle and see it append only one input box. Wow. Are you following it? All right, let's get at it immediately. So the next thing here is area rectangular prism. Rectangular prism. I guess we made a mistake here. We didn't add that prism. That's what it's supposed to be. Okay. Area rectangular prism. We didn't enter it correctly. All right. So I would like us to copy that immediately. So area rectangular prism. Of course, you could see what the user sees. Area of a rectangular prism. That's what the user sees here. Okay. So let's enter it here and enter area rectangular prism. Key in the formula. So what's the formula? This is gonna be area rectangular prism should ordinarily take length times w times h. Okay, but there is where it comes. So the parameters it will take now are l, w, h. So let's quickly enter the function. So it's going to be 2 times l times width plus length plus length times height plus width times height. This is the function for checking for the area of a rectangular prism. So put the comma, then put in the input parameters it will take, not this. Inputs. In this case, it will take length, width, and height. This is not a spelling for height. H-E-I-G-H-T. G-H-T. Alright, so the next thing will be the area of a rhombus. Formula. So what could be the formula for area of a rhombus? It checks for the two diagonals. In that case, diagonal 1 and diagonal 2. So D1, D2. Alright, put in the function using the arrow notation function. So just like checking for the area of a triangle, it goes with this 0.5 multiplied by the double diagonal, 0.5 multiplied by D1 times D2. Okay, D1, D2. Then put in the input parameters that it will take after having entered your comma. Inputs. Diagonal 1. Diagonal. Alright, so the next thing here will be the surface area of a cylinder. Why are we having this red line? Area rhombus. Area rhombus. Okay, let's check out for where the error is coming from. Okay, times D1 times D2 inputs. Let's see. Yeah, I just found that we've not added the comma that's supposed to be added there. So, surface area of a cylinder, it takes the formula for the surface area of a cylinder would be pi r h plus 2 pi r square. Alright, pi r height plus 2 pi r square. So in this case, how do we put in that? How do we key in this formula for the JavaScript to understand it? Okay, so we now have to put in the parameters it will take, which is just radius and height. Then put in the function it will take. Remember pi rh plus 2 pi r, so we're going with math.pi times r times height plus okay 2 pi. It's imperative we put this in a bracket so that it checks it together, plus 2 times maths dot r. It takes r and then the value is raised to power 2. then putting the inputs, which are radius and height. After that, we go for the perimeter of a rectangle. So in that case, let me just copy this area of a rectangle and then change what is to be changed. Perimeter. I didn't put this comma. I'm supposed to demarcate it. So that's the delimiter. Perimeter rectangle. Then it takes the parameters L and W. So in this case, it's not gonna be 2 times L times W, but then 2 times L plus width. So the inputs are still the same. So the next one will be perimeter of a triangle. So instead of copying that, let me still copy area of a triangle and then change what is expected to be changed. So instead of area, it becomes perimeter. And then the triangle takes the parameters A for all the sides, B and C, no longer base and height. So A, B, C. In this case, it's no longer going to be 0.5, that is half base times height. But now adding all the sides together. It now adds all the sides together. How are we gonna do that? Just to say A plus B plus C. It adds all the sides together. So what the user is expected to see here would now be side A, side C, side B. Side A. I need to copy this. So side C, side B. Let's check the output of our work. Reload the page. Check for the ones we've added now. Area of a triangle, square, trapezoid, circle, and then down to perimeter of a triangle, which we just added last, side A, B, C. Okay, when you're not getting it correctly, you would know. You would ordinarily know. Perimeter of a rectangle, we did this, length, width. So the next thing we shall be doing would be when you click on this calculating button, what should it do? What should it do? But we've not finished entering the formulas for all the operations. For instance, we've not added the formula to check for this operation, circumference of a circle, down to the statistical calculations. For instance, if I click on this circumference of a circle, you would see that there will be no appended input boxes. You could see it now. None has been added. So, but let's go ahead and key in the formula for checking that operation. Alright, so the circumference of a circle, we'll copy that of area of a circle and edit it. And simple, in mathematics, the formula for the area of a circle is 2 pi r. But then the area of a circle is pi radius square. So in this case, it's going to be 2 times pi times r. So circumference. You must make sure the value you are checking here synchronizes circumference circle. Okay, so let me copy it, because if you don't get it correctly, when you select it, it will not work. Okay, so circumference circle, the formula is still taking r, but in this case it's going to be 2 times pi times r. 2 pi r, just one r now. 2. Simple. Let's go back, reload the page, and you see it appended. So circumference of a circle, input box added. All right, so check for the volume of a rectangular prism. Now the volume of a rectangular prism would be similar to that of area of a rectangular prism. So let's copy it and edit it to suit what we want. So edit the area to volume. Remember, volume checks for 3D shapes, area checks for two-sided shapes. Okay. Volume rectangular prism. In this case, the parameters we are passing in still are length, width, height. But then here is going to be no longer going to be 2 times, but L, length times width times height. Simple. Length times width times height. The input parameters it will take are still length, width, height. Okay, so let's immediately go down to volume of a cylinder. Volume of a cylinder. We've started entering that of the 3D shapes. Okay, so volume of a cylinder, it's a bit more complicated. In a cylinder, you have the shape of a circle with a height. So we shall be taking what we did for area of a circle and add that of height. Okay, surface area of a cylinder. So let's take that, copy it and edit it to suit volume of a cylinder. So volume cylinder. Alright, it's still taking radius and height as the parameters being passed, but in this case it is checked as pi radius square h, pr square h. So math.pi times r square times h. So how do you put r square? Instead of just writing radius square as r times r times height, then erase this part. So instead of writing it that way, we'll end up writing it as, just pay attention. So I would like us to get this math.pi radius square. We shall need it. So instead of writing it like this, math.pi times radius times height, we will do it this way: math.pi times radius times math.pi radius square times h. Okay, so the parameters are still radius and height. Remember the formula? Know how to key it in for the JavaScript to understand. So right beneath the volume for the cylinder comes the volume of a cone. And mathematics back those days, one good thing about checking for the volume of a cone is once you get the volume of a cylinder, divide it into 3. So 1/3 of the volume of a cylinder gives you the volume of a cone. That's a secret you may never have discovered. Okay, so let's enter it here. Volume of a cone, 1/3 of the volume of a cylinder. Alright, so in this case it becomes, the function we are passing here would be 1/3 times math.pi radius square times h. Simple. So once you know the volume of a cylinder, you're good to go in getting the volume of a cone. So let's quickly go down to volume of a sphere. Volume of a sphere is totally different from this calculation. Okay, so let's check it in. Sphere. In this case, what then are the formula we're going to enter for the volume of a sphere? It takes, just like a circle. So it takes only the parameter of r, just like a circle here. So instead of adding height, because it does not have a height, just add r. So how then do we get it? It's now going to be 4/3 instead of 1/3 as we have in a cone. So it will be 4/3 multiplied by math.pi times r, now raised to power 3, not raised to power 2, and there will be no height. Simple as that. So in the input parameters, we shall be removing that of height. Height is only necessary when we have cone, pyramid, as well as cylinder. So for instance, you see we've added up to this point. So if I select this operation, it gives me this input box of radius. If I select cylinder, cylinder should give me two input boxes, radius and height. Similarly, if I select that of volume of a cone, okay. So stay tuned as we bring you the full gist. Okay. So for this series, I would like us to add just these last two, the volume of a pyramid and then the Pythagorean theorem, before we delve into the statistical calculations or checking for that operation. That will be coming to you in the next series. Okay, so for the volume of a pyramid looks like a triangle, so, or like a, yeah, so a triangle in three sides, so having length, having width, and having a height. Okay, so we would be making use of, it also looks like a prism. So we already have some calculation of a prism, so let me copy that volume of a rectangular prism and edit it to get the volume for a pyramid. So volume pyramid as some call it, would be giving us, taking the parameters of length, width, and height, we'll check it in with this formula, 1/3 times length times width times height, which you already have here, and then still taking the input parameters of length, width, and height. Okay, lastly is this Pythagorean. So I just copied this. Let's key it in here, put in the formula for that. Formula. Of course, in Pythagorean theory, we talk about hypotenuse, adjacent, and the other side. So in this case, when you're checking for maybe you're checking for the value of hypotenuse. In Pythagorean theorem, c square is equals a square plus b square. Now, and it boils down, if you want to check for the value of c square, it becomes the square root of, I guess you get it now. So the square root of a square plus b square. And JavaScript has a way of adding this square root function. Now we get it by saying, so Pythagorean theory, taking two sides, a, comma, b, then you use the arrow notation function to key in the function that will calculate this for us. So math dot square root, sqrt, you see it selected here. We have square root, checking for math dot pi, the power now, math dot power. So power of a, that's a raised to power 2 plus math dot power b raised to power 2. So I'm putting the input parameters that it will take, which are side A and side B. So let me copy this you have here. All right. To the point where we're drawing the curtain for this very episode or this very series coming to you from Edenite Technologies. Okay, so we've checked up or down to this part, the Pythagorean theorem. So if I click on it, it's expected to give me these two sides. So when I have the value of side A, maybe as 5, side B is 6. Side B is 6. So I'm checking for the unknown side, which is the side C hypotenuse. So it's expected that it gives me the square root of 5 square plus 6 square. That will be done when I must have added the functions for this calculating button. If I click on it now, it does not work. So we shall be adding that in the subsequent series, subsequent episode. Thank you for your rapt attention. If you find this useful, subscribe. Bring your criticism. Thank you.